grabbing, blocking, combos, atomic breath? Godzilla's known for his terrifying presence on the big screen, but did you know him and his kaiju crew had a wacky fighting game back in 2004? I'm Joe, a former games industry professional and amateur Godzilla fan. Today we're looking at Godzilla Save the Earth for the PlayStation 2. Godzilla Save the Earth was released in 2004 for the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox. 2004 was a massive year for gaming. I could sit here all day and list off the significant releases that released that year, but to do a quick summary, Half-Life 2, Halo 2, GTA San Andreas, World of Warcraft, Metal Gear Solid 3, Far Cry, Monster Hunter, Dragon Quest 8, Pokemon Emerald, Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, and many, many more. You can imagine Godzilla had a titan of a time trying to make an impact in this space. Developed by Pipeworks Software and published by Atari, Godzilla Save the Earth was a sequel to Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. Pipeworks Software is currently under Jagex, working as a co-dev studio, whereas Atari, well, who knows with Atari? I believe they're in the process of making a comeback. This fighting game has 18 different playable monsters and 5 different game modes. The fights take place across many different 3D battlefields. Power-ups are dropped for you, military shoot at you, and the cities are pretty destructible. The monsters all play very differently and even have their own resists, weaknesses, and damage bonuses, a bit like Pokemon. The game takes place 2 years after the prequel. The story involves the return of an original alien race called the Vortak, and these freaky little aliens are trying to get a hold of Godzilla's DNA. They have control over a vast army of monsters that the player must fight through to save the Earth. When I started this game up for the first time, I was greeted with the opening cinematic, which, by the way, is absolutely awesome. My inner child was jumping with joy, and I'd wish I'd known about this as a child instead of Zilla from 1998. I went into this game with completely no knowledge, and I was pleasantly surprised by how much pure fun I was having. As time went on, I realised I had absolutely no clue what was going on. This game could have 100% done with some form of tutorial mode, or maybe a training place to practice. It goes further than simple inputs. I didn't know what any of the power-ups did, I didn't have a clue what the weird containers were, I was just way too lost. Talking about those weird containers, through the use of Google I realised they were the G cells. You know, Godzilla's DNA, the one those freaky aliens were after. But what was the point of them? Well, in an interview from 2005 by Toho Kingdom, one of the developers stated that these cells were originally designed as the goal of each level. However, that was scrapped and they just kept them in to get more points at the end of each round. It's the main plot point, yet it's almost counterintuitive to go for them. It's a fighting game and you're running around looking for containers? I'm glad they were scrapped as the goal of each level. The fighting could also feel a little sluggish at times, and there were some mini games that were just the opposite of fun. The UFO one in particular really had me wanting to skip and do something else. However, some may argue the main point of a game is to have fun, and I had a lot of fun with this game, with an added dash of that's so cool. The game does not take itself too seriously at all, which works massively in its favour. Here's Godzilla trying to shoot some hoops and throwing his opponents because he's really bad at it. Here's Godzilla holding his foot like he stepped on a plug. It's absolutely hilarious and adds a lot of character to the game. In line with the character of the game, in Godzilla movies, one of Godzilla's trademark moves is his atomic breath, and there's been plenty of bad and good guys that have some form of beam move. This is a massive part of the gameplay here, and it feels so powerful. The devs did a really good job of making it really feel like an overpowered beam that'll just wipe everything out in its path. You can even aim it too, like a hose of destruction. You can also throw buildings at players, which allows you to be a straight up menace, and I love it. I mentioned earlier that there are 18 characters. Well, only 6 are available at the start, and that's a good thing. A lot of modern games have fallen victim to the live service bug. You want a new character? Well, you have to buy the battle pass. You want that unlockable area? Well, you don't have enough Godzilla coins. 500 coins will cost about £4. A bit before this, you had everything being a pre-order bonus or DLC. I hate it. Now, to avoid sounding like an old man shouting at a cloud, I get it. Games nowadays take a lot of time to make and cost a fortune, but a lot of them have lost their charm. There's something really awesome about unlocking a character and feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment as you didn't open your wallet for it. The only complaint I'll have here is they weren't too creative with how to unlock these characters. You unlock them with points earned from playing the story mode, whereas something like Smash Bros. Melee had really specific tasks like unlocking Pichu by completing Event 37. Talking about Smash Bros. Melee, this game released 3 years after, yet Melee had significantly more content. I know Smash Bros. Is a really high benchmark, but you're going to naturally draw the comparison when you're playing this game. When you compare it to Smash Bros. Melee's story mode, it comes up short. It follows Melee's pattern of fight opponent 1, then fight opponent 2, with a mini game put in here and there, until you get to the final boss. However, Melee had platforming levels, unique battles, and rewards for each character finish, which, by the way, Melee has 7 to 8 more characters depending on whether you consider Sheik a different character. Melee also had Giga Bowser that could be fought naturally through adventure mode, or Master Hand and Crazy Hand who could both be fought in classic mode. Godzilla has, well, no one. The final battle is a random monster unless you play the mode as Godzilla 2000 on hard difficulty, and then you get to fight Space Godzilla to get the ending, which is only like 20 seconds long by the way. I'm thinking way too hard about it. Back to mindless fun. The Melee game mode, not to be confused with Smash Bros, is some crazy fun. You and up to 3 other people or computers battling it out for dominance. The versus is just the generic 1v1. It's good for calling someone out, you know, 1v1 me on Save the Earth bro, but sort of pointless for anything else. The challenges range from really funny with basketball to a slog with the UFO game I mentioned before, to sort of cool with the battleships mode. Action is the name of the main mode, which again is sort of like classic mode on Smash Bros. Melee, with little challenges added here and there like beating 2 Jet Jaguars. I hate that dude, he deflects beams. Overall, it was a lot of fun, and I can only imagine it's even more fun with friends. There was an online mode, but it's 20 years old at this point, so I can't comment on that really. The audio holds up quite well. The things that matter are the roars of the monsters, which are mostly accurate, and that iconic Godzilla theme, which is present in this game. There's also an announcer who announces who's won and who's fighting, and that voice is done really well, so props to them for that. One small note about audio, Megalon sounds like a puppy wincing when it gets hit, which I did not understand whatsoever. It was just really bizarre. The music hits all the right notes expected from a Godzilla product. However, it's not really anything special, especially when you think of how many fighting games out there have soundtracks that people still listen to this day. On the visual side of things, the monster models look really accurate. The arenas are pretty great, and in all honesty, this game holds up really well considering it's 20 years old. It's no Halo 2 in terms of graphics, but it's no slouch either. Now, a warning. Do not play this game for the story. There isn't one. There's an ending, but as I said earlier, it's a 20-second cutscene that you must do specific things to unlock. There's not really any world building or storytelling. None of it really matters. I hear you say, why should storytelling matter in a fighting game? You're sorta right, it really doesn't. However, there are plenty of fighting games out there with actual storylines, world building, and endings for each character, whereas this doesn't have anything. One minute you're fighting Rodan, the next you're shooting hoops with your pals. But I don't care that there's no storytelling here. It doesn't really affect how I feel about the game, and it probably won't affect most people either. Now we fast forward back to the year 2024. Godzilla is absolutely huge, and not just literally. Godzilla Minus One released at the end of 2023 and is possibly the best Godzilla movie ever. It even won an Oscar. Godzilla x Kong comes out at the start of 2024 and smashes the record for the highest grossing Godzilla film ever. As of this video, I think it was at $500 million. But what about the games? There's been appearances of Godzilla in other games. A brawler game called Gigabash had a bunch of Godzilla characters released as DLC. Godzilla himself was also in Fall Guys and Call of Duty of all things. If we're talking about something a bit more Godzilla themed, then a game was released in 2017 called City Shrouded in Shadow, a survival game that looks awesome. You play as a human during these gigantic battles between monsters, robots and the like. However, it only released in Japan. For the most recent game with Godzilla's name on the box, not including mobile games, you'd be looking at the 2015 game released for the PS3 and 4, which costs about £250 and is not available digitally. So for an accessible game, you're going all the way back to 2007, where the sequel to Saves the Earth was released for the Wii and PS2. That is 17 years ago. Now, before anyone brings up Godzilla Voxel Wars, yes, you're right. It may be a good game, but does it really count? Ask yourself that. Surely, at this point in time, we're due a Godzilla game. Either a horror survival like Minus One from the perspective of a human, or a more mindless fun game like Godzilla x Kong. Who knows, man, but the stock is way too high and it's been far too long. To finish this off, Godzilla Save the Earth is absolutely mindless fun. A little short on content and not to the level of Super Smash Bros, but I think there's enjoyment to be had there regardless of these flaws. I'm happy to recommend this game, especially if you're a Godzilla fan. It's fun and that's what matters at the end of the day. Since you guys made it all the way to the end, let me know in the comment section what your favourite Godzilla game is, or game with Godzilla in it. I have honestly never played a Godzilla game before this one, which is shocking considering how much I love the big guy. Thanks for joining me on this journey through time. Have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, and be sure to check back in next week for a trip underground. You might want to bring your gas mask. See you then.